As a swordsmith and YouTuber, my uploading schedule kinda sucks. Now this is mostly due to the fact that most of my projects take literal months to complete. Well, today, I'm going to attempt to ask the age-old question, can you make a sword in one day? All right, guys, so it is currently 10 o'clock on Friday, September 12th, and we have 24 hours to forge a sword, and a legendary sword at that. Now, first things first, we need to decide upon which sword we are going to do, as there are literally hundreds of swords that I could do for this challenge. Now, in order to figure out the design, I'm going to be referencing a book by Ewart Oakeshott called Records of the Medieval Sword. And in this book, we have a lot of different documented examples of historical swords, which is going to help us a lot. Now, I've decided to go with a Type 14 sword here, which is going to be a single-handed sword, and the part that's going to be really challenging is it has two fullers. Most of you know that when you add any sort of fuller to a sword, it gets a lot harder to make, but we're adding two. So it's going to be even more of a challenge. All that being said, I need to stop talking and start forging. So let's go ahead and light the forge. Didn't see you there. Now the steel that we're going to be using for this sword is this. This is an old leaf spring from like that of a truck or a car or something like that. This steel is not only super tough and resilient, but it also holds an amazing edge, which is perfect for a sword. Of the billet's actually trying to cup on itself a little bit. This is because it's only about 1/4 inch thick and it's really tall, and so when I squish it from the height dimension, all it wants to do is collapse, and that's no good. So we just have to very slowly try to pull this material down into our sort of sword shape. Alright, so we got a little bit of an issue here. This is the end of the billet, and I just cannot seem to get that without having this sort of fish mouth. So what I'm going to do is cut this off so I can forge the tip in. What? You guys have seen me do much worse. Ow! shape is intentional. This will set me up so that when I bevel a blade, all the material is right where I need, right when I need it. Now that being said, we're gonna go ahead, flip this around and forge down our tang before we start to bevel it. This is the awesome part where it begins to become a sword. Let's go ahead and do it. Oh man, this is awesome. Now as I begin to hand bevel this blade, you'll notice I'm going to turn off kind of the second burner of a forge. This is because hand beveling is only a very small section of the blade at a time, so you only need to get that part hot. Let's go ahead and keep forging. So we are 2 hours in and the blade is about 1/5 beveled, so like 20%. It's getting real hot here. I feel the pressures of competition. Anyways, let's just keep working. Let's just keep moving. Words are hard. Alright, so the forge has now been sword. What? Alright, so the sword has now been forged. We're now going to pull the quench tank out to here so we can quench it. I'm not going to do any sort of profile work yet because it might work during heat treat, and I want room to be able to grind that away. All right, so this is our quench oil. It's Parks 50, so we're gonna go into this, and then, yeah, the sword will be ready to be, you know, it'll have a life in it. The sword will be hardened, that's what I'm trying to say. So the blade is warped, but it's okay. It's okay. It is in a place that I can feel pretty confident about fixing during the temper cycles, which you can see me doing here. Essentially, I'm just going to apply some gentle pressure and get that slight bow out before we move on to anything else with the grinding and kind of finishing steps of the sword blade. Which, speaking of that, that is what we're going to do. So I'm going to basically roughen the profile and start setting up our geometries for our finished blade before adding in something that's really scary in a little bit. But you'll have to see that when we get there. Boing! Okay, back on the grind! All right, so the blade has been ground. We have nice defined bevels. Now the next step is we're gonna be adding in some fullers. Now for those who don't know, a fuller is essentially just a groove that runs down the length of the sword blade. And while typically doing one of these on a sword is a very time-consuming kind of part of the process of making one of these. Well, guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna make 2 fullers on both sides. So we're going to be doing quad fullers on this sword, and the next step is me marking out everything and starting to grind it. So the sword is not finished ground yet. However, I'm going to take a short break because my hands are starting to get a little bit shaky and the fullers keep kind of getting more and more difficult to grind. So rather than fight with that for the next 2 hours and be unhappy with the result, I'm going to move on to forging out the guard. Also, I made a fire. It is 7:03, and speed is essential. So we're going to be hot fitting this guard and then cleaning it up with the belt grinder later. So that is our forged guard. We're about 12 hours into this challenge, and I'm still feeling pretty good about where we're at. Now what we're gonna do is start to clean this up. Let's make this thing look cool. Woo! So the guard has been completely fitted and is roughly shaped. Now, the next step that I want to kind of do to keep things moving is fit up the pommel to the handle of the sword here. So this sword is laid out in a 1:5 ratio, meaning that the handle and grip is one part of the 5 parts for the blade length. So we have a 33-inch blade. That means that we need a 6.6-inch long handle. This ends up giving us about a 4-inch grip, a little bit under, and that's a historical measurement of arming swords, which I'm pretty excited to be able to replicate here. That being said, I now need to drill some holes in this pommel, starting with a smaller hole and then going to a bigger hole, and then grind this tang to taper to fit said holes. And then we can get everything fitted up, and sooner than later, we're gonna have a pretty awesome sword. Okay, that was weird. Let's do it. You don't need a mill, just a drill press and some elbow grease and prayers that you get a straight hole. It is currently 12:30, and we've been at this for 14 hours, 14 and a half hours, so my feet hurt. So we now have a fitted up pommel, and pretty much all the metal components are fitted to the sword. Now I have a lot of shaping to do on this pommel, but before we do that, I want to really quickly fit up the wooden grip. That way I kind of know what shape and can kind of start to get a better feeling of how the sword's going to feel in your hand. To do this, I'm first going to chop a piece of oak, and then I'm going to drill a couple holes in it, and we're going to do a burn through method, which is a historical way of doing it. It's a little bit scary and produces a lot of smoke, but it's fast, and we need speed at the moment. All right, so now I just got to drill some basic holes. Oh, that is not good. And that is how you do a burn through. It is currently 1:37 now on Saturday, September 13th. In the morning, I think I'm gonna go to bed for a couple hours and see if I can get some sleep. And then in the morning, try to finish this thing up so that we're done before the 24-hour time limit runs out at 10 a.m. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get some sleep. Good night. Good morning. So it is currently 6:30 in the morning, the following morning, and I have until about 10 a.m. to finish said sword. We ended up working till about 2 a.m. last night, and in that time, we have a mostly finished blade, a mostly finished guard, a mostly finished handle, and a not so finished pommel. So what I'm going to do now is, starting with the front of the sword, I'm going to slowly bring everything to its finished state so that we can assemble it, because I only have a couple hours to finish the sword. Dude, as I've been grinding this sword, look at how flexible this thing is. So I'm currently wrapping the wooden core in a sort of hemp cord. And what this will do is, historically, this is used to strengthen the wooden core, as well as provide a really interesting texture for whenever we go to add leather to it. Now I'm doing this knowing full well that I'm gonna have to let stuff dry for 24 hours. And so my aim with this is to get the leather on here and have the sword completely done, besides the glue drying, and that way I'm not doing any work on the sword after the given time limit. We got 2 hours left. It's 8 o'clock, and we're gonna go ahead and put the leather on, or at least prepare the leather for the grip. All right, so now that we have our leather wrapped around the wooden core and that has to dry now, the last thing to finish up is the pommel. So I need to go ahead, start grinding on it, remove a little bit more material so the sword is balanced properly, and then, yeah, then we can go ahead and peen everything together and assemble it, and we'll have a finished sword. Supposed to happen. Okay, so we only have a few minutes left, a little about 20 minutes, and I still need to peen the whole sword together and then get everything nice and sharp. So what I'm gonna do is basically try to clamp this thing in the post vise, and we're gonna try to peen it and see how it goes. Ah, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to shorten this. Angle grinder, where art thou? The sword has been peened. Now it's time to sharpen it. And folks, that is why you temper your swords. Not in 10 seconds like how I did with this one. From the shards of Narsil will be reforged into Andoril, the flame of the West. Like and subscribe!